Good morning, good morning, good morning, as Mr. Henry might say, and welcome to the sunrise safari on this gloriously cool morning, which I have to tell you is much appreciated by all out here. My name is Jamie. I have Tebs on camera with me this morning, who is of course our lucky leopard charm. James is out and about with Brian. We also have Kirsten Jerry in FC. What a wonderful morning it promises to be. Wake up at this time of the day with the sun not quite over the horizon and filled with a sense of expectation that only the joys of a live safari can bring. We're coming to you from Djuma and Arathusa game reserves within the Sabi Sands Greater Kruger Park area in South Africa. And we are live and interactive, so send through your questions on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or email them through to questions@wildearth.tv. We have, as I said, gloriously cool morning. I'm in a jacket because when it is 40 degrees every day and 35 when you go to sleep at night, a day that starts out at 20 degrees, which is about 68 degrees Fahrenheit, for those of you using the imperial system, it is actually quite chilly. Makes a nice surprise. And I keep telling myself every morning I shouldn't wear a jacket, I should revel in the joys of being cold. It doesn't really work that way. I'm on my way to Arathusa to see what's happening there. Dennis, you were watching in Spain, you were keeping an eye on the Arathusa Dam camera for us last night. You said at about 9 o'clock you saw a leopard walk past the camera. We'll keep an eye out, see if we can figure out which leopard it was and where it went from there. It's got a little bit of a head start on us, but you never know. Might have killed something just around the dam, and we might have a really special morning ahead of us. Who knows, we might even bump into those wild dogs along the way. Let us go and see what wonderful and magical things we can find. For those of you concerned about the safety of Brent and Andrew, I'm happy to tell you that they are alive and well and have finally made it onto the lake after their slight delay in Vic Falls. Not that I think they were complaining. They're certainly alive. Hello Zibbies, good morning. I'm going to come back to that. I want to know what that is. Good morning, striped horsies and little fluffy foal. That is a very striking zebra. Little one following behind. Oh, and there's a very happy little bird calling off in the distance somewhere. Sounds like one of the scrub robins. What's with your tail, little one? Holding it strangely. And even the zebras are now munching on trees as well. Sure, that was the best choice though, little one. Ah, scratching post. It's the way forward. Bear with me one moment. I'm going to leave these zebras completely, but I just do just want to go backwards. Pick up something I've just seen. I have to put the car in reverse to go backwards, apparently. What have we got here? I'm just being careful not to drive over any tracks in case it provides some evidence as to who deposited this on the ground. Sorry, Zeds. Sure. This is a bit of a mystery to me. Don't want to disturb the zebras. Okay, it is something similar to a potato. It's a tuber of some kind. It's still damp. So whatever pulled this out of the ground, it is still fresh. I wonder whether these zebra weren't responsible. It's unlikely. I haven't heard of them digging up stuff like this. Let me get in so I don't startle the zebra more than necessary. There's no tracks around it, but it is early. The light's a little bit... Oh my goodness, I bet you that's a bit toxic. I just have a feeling that maybe I shouldn't touch my mouth after this. Oops, sorry. It's a tuber of some kind. It's got a skin almost like a potato. And sort of thick and fleshy. Lots and lots of moisture within it. So something has come through and dug this up from somewhere. It's got a very spongy texture. My first thought was a porcupine. And porcupines are renowned for digging up things like this, tubers, and they move from spot to spot, sniffing them out of the ground, and then digging them out with very powerful claws. And they are pretty much vegetarians, our largest rodent in South Africa. The reason that I don't think it is just the sheer size of this. It's been carried from somewhere, and it's really big. I mean, it's actually quite solid and heavy. I don't think a porcupine, maybe. I mean, they're always stronger than we expect them to be. This is a mystery to me. Some kind of potato-like tuber. If you look at the outside, you can see what I mean about it being a potato. Safari Dean. Could be an African water root. I think it's slightly the wrong shape, but I'm actually honestly not sure. It's been munched, so it's difficult to tell. It is either a porcupine or maybe an elephant. First mystery of the day. Rather sandy, rather squelchy. I'm going to keep it. I'll return it. I will return it to nature because I think it's got quite a... Okay, alright, Zebbies. I think it's got quite a value in terms of a nutrition source. Anyway, I'll see if I can figure out what it is. In the meantime, Mr. Hendry would like to say good morning to you and present to you some wonderful spotted creatures.
Hello everybody. We're trying to show you an animal here, believe it or not, but it's so close that you can't actually see it. It is a little hyena. We're at the den, or the secondary den, quickly checking to see if we can spot the little cubs that are still inside the hole. I don't think we can at the moment. The mother is still plugging up the hole there. But believe it or not, Brian is not just filming the back of my head for the sake of it. There's a little hyena here. A little fluff ball, I would say of roughly 5 to 6 months old. Having a scratch, a good chew at the stump. Anyway, welcome to the dawn. The sun is just about to peep over the horizon, which means most things here are about to run for shelter. You might be able to hear some zebra alarm calling behind us. Chop, chop, chop. And as I was saying yesterday, sorry about this. I was saying yesterday, the hyenas tend not to age particularly well. This one looks like you could take it home and make a fluffy pet of it. And of course, by the time they get to the age of Corky, you wouldn't want to take it anywhere near your home. So there is the adult, still plugging up the hole there. They were all calling into that little den site yesterday evening, and I think that there are some little ones in there. I'm not going to spend too long here this morning. I just wanted to come and see, and if they haven't been encouraged out of the hole yet, and I hope that they will be very soon. I don't know if Jamie told you, but it's 20 degrees Celsius, 68 degrees Fahrenheit, which...
Sorry, what was this?
Oh, gosh. Now, the hyena here is invisible. This is because she is right in front of the vehicle. I can't see her anymore. Hello. She's just examining the high lift jack. Oh, the bull bar. She's now chewing the bull bar. Hi. She's chewing on the bumper, which is solid steel. Excuse me. Oi. Now having a go at the tires. Now it's so funny because they're like this when they're little, but when they get to adulthood, they just lose interest slowly. They become very bored by the vehicles. They don't, they stop playing with us. They stop they just ignore us completely, which is exactly how we want it to be, really. This one doesn't seem to have any playmates, and Mum is not around at the moment. Sorry, Brian. Seems to have disappeared again. On the right-hand side here. You might be able to see her. Can't see her. Hi. Shouldn't really do that, of course. But you can't even see the hyena. There's the other one. Let's watch her for a while. We'll sit here for another 5 minutes or so. And the other advantage of that, quite apart from the fact that we can't see the little cub, or the little cubs with any luck, it's important that the mother gets completely comfortable with us. She certainly doesn't look in the slightest bit alarmed by us, but also that she just feels comfortable enough to bring the little ones out when they're ready, if we happen to be here. Hello, Dave. You're following us or tweeting us from the Twitter handle Cheesy Cheetah. Thank you, Dave. You say you would like to see a snake or a monitor lizard. Well, we'll do our best. I must say, I haven't seen a lot of snakes. We had a wonderful comment from somebody in Afghanistan yesterday called Arabian Desert, who wanted to know why we're not seeing quite as many snakes as we might be. Well, that's a very nice toy, that, isn't it? Always nice to take home a big piece of elephant dung to the den. Well done. Play with all sorts here. So, Dave, not a lot of snakes that I've seen. There are lots of snakes around. Brian, you haven't seen many snakes? Mm-hmm. So I think with lack of water, is keeping them kind of away a little bit. Monitor lizards, yes, we have seen a few. Certainly, we were seeing a water monitor very often around the Juma Dam, but at the moment, not many. These hyenas are an endless source of amazement and amusement. Given up on the elephant dung, now chewing on a plant that would be very toxic to human beings, called a tambuti tree. And the whole den set in a beautiful little grove of tambuti trees. And where that would make us quite ill, it's not going to affect the hyena's constitution. A follow-up there, you would like to know if any animal has ever climbed onto the vehicle. Obviously this hyena was chewing on the bull bar. Young hyenas do that quite often. I've had young hyenas come and steal the wheel, the little sort of oil caps on the wheels of the Land Rover, and then you really struggle to replace them, which is a bit irksome. But I've had one animal try and climb onto the vehicle, did climb onto the vehicle, a young male leopard, being chased by wild dogs, leapt up onto the car in a frenzy of anger and tore at the tracker seat on the front of the car. Thankfully the tracker wasn't on it, he was at the back. It was a particularly terrifying event of my life. I don't intend to ever have it repeated. You really don't want wild animals on your vehicle, and it's an interesting one because, I know that most of you know this, but even a cute little animal like this, when faced with a threat, when faced with kind of when cornered, they will become utterly terrifying. A great example of that is a vervet monkey. Now, a vervet monkey, you would imagine, it's a tiny thing. It probably weighs about 15 kilograms, if that, a big male. And if you corner a vervet monkey, or if a dog, for example, corners a vervet monkey, those monkeys are incredibly fast. They've got very razor-sharp teeth, and they will throw everything into a fight. They very quickly realize when they're in a fight, and it is very scary. So you don't want any kind of animal around here. There's very little that we can physically outmatch out here, with the exception of perhaps a particularly docile squirrel, maybe a dwarf mongoose, a little one. But everything else is going to do some serious damage to a human being, even if you were to overcome them eventually. And that's only, everybody, should you ever get into the highly unlikely position of having cornered an animal. It's a bit rough when you're at the secondary den and the only thing you have to play with is an old piece of elephant dung. Roy Phelps, he says a new sport, dung polo. I certainly remember as children, my brother and I, the odd occasion that we went to the bush kicking elephant dung around. Or rhino dung was a great sport, so I suppose the hyena's no different really. The backward elephant dung bite. The frontward sideways elephant dung bite. There are all sorts of different ways of doing it, of course. And hear a tinkerbird going in the distance there. It's now stopped, of course. There it goes. Hello, Kasif, you're a new viewer, and obviously for new viewers, having been told legends of African animals, when you see this kind of confiding behavior from the animals where they're not attacking us or not running away from us, you've drawn the correct conclusion that they are familiar with the vehicles. Yes, Kasif, they are absolutely familiar with the vehicles. They are certainly not in any way tame, though. They're familiar with the vehicles. If I was to get out of this car, there would be a reaction. You'd find that both of these hyenas would run away at great speed. If I was to create a situation where the little cubs inside the hole were threatened, then I could well be in some trouble. So Kasif, a lot of the animals here are completely used to the vehicles, but that is not to say that they are tame and they are not used to us on foot. They do see us on foot from time to time, and they will normally run away, but they are quite familiar with the vehicles, like you say, and they just go about their lives, which is wonderful. It means we can observe them without sort of affecting their behavior, which is fantastic. Of course, one of the major threats to hyenas would be lions, and I mean, if you ever want to watch a battle between lions and hyenas, the great Joubert film Eternal Enemies, I think it's Eternal Enemies, there are lots of enemies films and various synonyms for eternal. I think it's Eternal Enemies. Incredible sort of showcase of the continuous battle that goes on between lions and hyenas. That was in Botswana. It's no different here. And Debbie, you want to know about lions. If they were to approach the den here, what would happen? What would happen to the cubs? Would they be able to kill the cubs? No, I've actually seen it happen at the other den. 3 lions appeared on the scene. Brian and I were sitting there minding our own business, and 3 lions arrived. And what happens is that the hyenas will assess the situation very carefully, just to decide whether they should stand, whether they should harass the lions, or whether they should run away. Now, we're a big pride of lions to walk across here. You'd find the adults would melt off into the bush at great speed. That youngster would go with an adult, or disappear down into the hole. That one was probably small enough still to get into a hole. Very young cubs will stay in their holes, and they construct special shelves on which to sit that no other animal can get at. So right inside the den, even if that mother wanted to go in there and fetch out the little cubs, if they happen to be on those specially constructed shelves at the back of the den, she won't be able to fetch them, and certainly no lion would ever be able to get its big head inside the den in order to pull out one of those little hyena babies. So the default kind of reaction is to get away. The cubs will look after themselves because they're safe inside the hole, and then they wait for the lions to go. In the case that Brian and I had when we saw those 3 lions, and sorry, I'm getting an amazing update here. Right. Jamie is following up on some wild dog tracks, which is fascinating. I'll get back to that little story, and I'm just going to update the game drive, and then we might go and help her. Stations, I'm not sure if you've copied this, but Jamie is following tracks of a pack of dogs on Zoe's Road, crossed onto Vuyatela from Zebra Drive. She's on her own there. I'm going to go and give her a hand now. Right, everybody, just quickly to finish that off, we had 3 young lions, Brian and I, come through the hyena den. There were 4 or 5 adult hyenas there, and what they did was they decided that because there were 3 young lions, they probably weren't as big a threat as a larger pride would have been, and so where the lions lay down sort of at this distance from the den, they came in from behind and harassed them, bit them on the bottom once or twice, which of course you've got to be extremely brave to do to a lion. I certainly wouldn't try and bite a lion on the bottom, would you, Brian? Maybe, but you're braver than I am, yes. So, yeah, it just depends on the numbers. Right, we're going to try and go and help Jamie. Well, we're going to go and check the northern end of Zoe's and perhaps quarantine clearings. Wild dogs on the hunt is the perfect way to begin the day. Let's get out of here. Bye, hyenas. See you later. I will be back for my twice daily visit this afternoon. Of course, we can't start the car. We're either going to go across to Jamie for a few minutes, or we're just going to go black screen for a little while. I think
and we're racing back towards Juma and back on, because we got a report that the wild dogs tracks crossed into Boyatella, so into Juma, at some point early this morning. The reason that we're both racing to the same scene to look for them is that this time of morning, at this time of year, is the perfect time to see action. After about an hour or so, the sun starts to come up and temperatures immediately top at over 30 degrees centigrade. And the animals start to go and lie down in the shade and they relax a little bit. So this time of the morning is crucial for actually viewing the animals in action, which is why both James and myself are racing off. The other aspect, of course, is that the further you let wild dogs get ahead of you, the harder they become to find because they move so fast. Our regular viewers have seen that before. Even when we're with them, we occasionally have difficulty. I say occasionally, we often have difficulty staying with them as they race through the bush. So it's important to, as soon as you get a report like this, start checking around for tracks and see if you can follow up. Just a quick update from the leopard side of things on Arathusa. No updates from the guides yet, but I did pick up on tracks coming along Safari driveway and crossing into the Hoffman's property. Looks like Shadow's tracks. It's a female's tracks. That's what I can tell you with absolute certainty. So she, whoever she is, probably Shadow, given the position of the tracks, crossed into Hoffman's some point late last night. Why do I know it's late? I don't necessarily know it was late, but I do know that it was at some point during the night, because a hyena has walked on top of them, and so has a civet. So in terms of aging them, particularly the civet tracks, are fairly crucial in that respect. I'm tracking at the same time as chatting to you, making sure I don't miss wild dog tracks pattering across the road. They've got quite tiny, quite delicate little feet. You'd be surprised. And they also don't necessarily use the roads. And if they do, they don't necessarily all walk together. They quite often will be spread out 20, 30, 40 meters apart when they cross, particularly if they're hunting or chasing something. Babblers. The position that they crossed would put them somewhere in this vicinity here. So I've slowed down a little bit. I wonder whether they're not on that treehouse already. Seem to love treehouse down at the moment. Now for new viewers, the way that what the wild dogs will be doing at the moment is they'll be hunting. That's what they do first thing in the morning. And their hunting strategy is known as coursing. So they spread out through the bush and they just run and essentially flush anything that might be sleeping or not paying enough attention. And as soon as that happens, then they all join in the chase, and they chase down that particular animal. I'm just listening to James chattering away. I'm listening enviously to James chattering away in Shangaan. I'm very, very jealous. I do not have the same mastery of languages that Mr. Henry has. heard my name. My name was definitely mentioned in that conversation. So in aging those leopard tracks, I mentioned that they had civet tracks over them. And Diana, you were wondering what a civet is. And the answer to that question is, it sort of looks like a cross between a mongoose and a badger, and maybe with a bit of cat thrown in there. And what I'll do is, I promise you, when we find these wild dogs, or when the chase is less urgent, I will show you a picture, Diana. And it is a small nocturnal creature about this big, maybe a bit bigger, that big, black and white in color, and it is an insectivore essentially, one of the few creatures out here that eats millipedes. It is part of the Mastilidae, no, sorry, it's not. It's part of the Viveridae family, so related to genets. And all of that, the mongoose family, the Mastilidae, so the honey badger family, and then the Viveridae, so the genets and the civets, all quite closely related to each other through the presence of an anal gland. Sorry, I just need to chat to James. Those two thoughts are not connected. Standing by.
So any updates on your phone?
Negative. I haven't picked up on any crossing the road here. Apparently they came in from Zebra Drive onto Boyatella, and where they went from there I do not know.
Okay, copy. Have you checked for the Monte Carlo?
I was there this morning. I might have missed tracks going over there. I didn't pick up anything though.
Okay, copy. What's your route? Yeah, just I'm thinking, I'm on the road, some kind of I'll check the positive container. Can go ahead. Oh, I'm behind. Go to go, so I'll check the ornamented place.
Sorry guys, just coordinating the search effort. Trying not to drive over any wild dog tracks at the same time. Luckily the sun is now out, which helps immensely with tracking. It's very difficult to track in the dark. You can switch your headlights on, that does help to a certain degree. You need sunlight to just catch the tracks at the right angle. And they show up as clear as day. I was talking about civets. So civets are nocturnal creatures, and they're actually generally creatures of habit. Usually if you see one set of civet tracks walking up the road, you usually find a second coming back on the same path in the opposite direction. They seem to walk very similar or set paths at night, but tiny, perfect little paw prints as tracks, which I will also show you if I have a moment. Monkey Man, you might hear us talking on the radio, and we generally, not always, but we usually use the local terminology for the animals that we're looking for. And you want to know what the wild dogs are. The answer is they are called madach, which to me is it's actually a really nicely descriptive name. It sounds like them. That it's almost almost the way that they move, if that makes sense. I don't know whether it's just because I'm conflating the word dash in my head, but it is madash, M-A-D-A-S-H. So if you hear us talking about madash on the radio, that is what we're referring to. Got to be careful though, because if we're talking about stuff like that on the radio, a lot of the road names are named after the terminology for the animals. Those impala look far too relaxed for there to have been wild dogs here. Interestingly, generally, when you're searching for wild dogs, you cannot rely on alarm calls. And the reason behind that is that animals don't even bother. They don't waste time alarm calling and trying to point out to everyone that there's something there, because if you stand still long enough to alarm call, you're going to become a target. The way that wild dogs hunt is so different. A leopard knows as soon as the alarm call starts, that hunt is over, it has been spotted, and it doesn't stand a chance in that dash. Wild dog don't care if they're spotted. In fact, that's the entire idea. They flush their prey and then race after it. Although it is one of the most graphic deaths that wild dogs inflict, which has led to them having a really terrible reputation. In fact, it is probably one of the quickest. And Tim, you were saying that they say that most animals go into shock very quickly after being caught by a wild dog. And yes, absolutely. They're essentially eviscerated and killed within seconds of being caught. So in a way, could be considered to be quicker and more merciful than death by slow strangulation, as is what sometimes happened with the large cats. So wild dogs, they have been given a very poor reputation, but I think it's absolutely the case that the animal goes into shock. In fact, I would hazard to say that that animal, apart from fear, doesn't feel very much at the end of a wild dog hunt. Happens so quickly. I want to go and check exactly where those tracks went into Boyatella, because I haven't found any tracks coming out. That doesn't mean necessarily that we've missed them. It could mean that we're one step removed, if that makes sense. So they might have just crossed in here, and as I'm doing a circle, they might cross out exactly where I was before. It's really tricky to figure out exactly how to go about finding a wild dog pack. Hello, Roy. It is nice to have you back watching the show again. Roy Phelps would like to know if wild dogs always travel in packs. Yes, they do. Occasionally you will get one adult moving quite far ahead. What's in the road? Nothing. A tree is in the road. I spotted a tree, everyone. Years and years of nature guiding experience, I still make that mistake. Roy Phelps, yes. Sometimes there's a sort of a leader of the pack, so to speak, who might course a little bit further ahead of the others. And I've seen a lone wild dog chase, and just because it's become separate from the rest of the pack during its movement through the bush, so they can split up and separate and kind of leave, but they're still traveling very much as part of a pack. It's still very much a group experience. Sorry, I'm listening with half an ear to the radio. With the Investec and the Sands pack, both wild dog packs that we see fairly regularly, they've both got litters of puppies with them. Turn down a little bit. So the pups travel slightly behind, and when the wild dogs race off on a hunt, what the pups often do is they just lie down wherever they are, settle down and wait until they are called by the adults. And that's one of the reasons why wild dogs have these giant radar ears. It's a way of being able to locate different pack members after the frenetic chaos of a hunt. But they'll always, as soon as those pups have left the den, they'll travel together. I've got a funny feeling about Treehouse Dam. I wonder that they're not going to repeat that pattern. We've got a new viewer to welcome, so a big hello to Alan. Alan, you wanted to know if this was in Kruger. We're open to Kruger. It's part of the Sabi Sands Game Reserve, somewhere that you probably will have heard of. It's one of the most famous private reserves within South Africa itself. So we are open to the Kruger National Park. Essentially, we are sitting on close to 3 million hectares of unfenced territory. And we sit on the south, let me just get this right, I'm having a moment this morning with directions, southwestern corner of Kruger, so just beneath Orpin Gate. If you're familiar with the Kruger area, I'm not entirely sure where you're from, but if you're South African, you'll definitely be familiar with the Kruger Park setup. It's just below the Orpin Gate, underneath Manuletti, or south of Manuletti if we want to be terminologically correct. We drive on our own little patch of wilderness around Djuma and Arathusa game reserves. So that's within our Traverse area. Right. Where did these wild dogs go? I want to see these tracks for myself. Sorry, forgive the jiggles and the rumbles. There's hyena tracks here. This is one of the busiest patches of road, so there's lots and lots of traffic around it. Here's their tracks, I think. Backwards and forwards. Sorry guys, bear with me one moment. I just want to figure out roughly if there's a pattern to the direction they're going in. They've gone in through here. Oh, puppy tracks everywhere, up and down. So they spent some time around this patch. I can smell the fresh scat. In fact, there's places here where they lay down. This is where they spent at least a portion of the night. Over here, let one of the other vehicles come by. Oh, never mind, it's a Djuma vehicle. I'm stopping here so that I don't drive over any of the tracks that this particular individual, I can't quite see who it is. I think it's Aubrey. It is Aubrey. Oh, there's a convergence of the various Djuma guides. Texans arriving as well. These guys are just going to double check on where the tracks came from. just do a quick loop into Arethusa. I want to double check that these tracks did actually cross. I want to go chat to the guides as well, so let's head over to James so that he can update you on his search from that side.
Right, everybody, hello. We're all trying to find the dogs now, of course. I haven't found any further tracks. Not sure what's going on. There are 3 or 4 people looking. So I'm going to keep the radio up so I can hear. But Aubrey and Taxon from Juma are around here. Something's gotten into my eye, and so I can only see through one eye at the moment. The other one is just crying. Not made any better by the fact that the sun, of course, is now so bright. As usual, a beautiful golden morning. Just going to drive relatively slowly. Everybody's been rushing around now all over the place trying to find tracks here and there. Haven't found anything further, so time has come to slow down a little bit and just be a little more detailed about our checking. Right, tracks going back into Arethusa. Let me just tell Jamie that. Orbs, at what position did they cross back?
Yeah, just went to the corner here. Long cross over to the west center. And Jamie, she's gonna try to follow them.
Okay, cool, thanks. Right, well that's the end of that search for us. They've gone into Arethusa, and Jamie is going to carry on following them there. We can't take this vehicle there. It will do signal immediately. So we shall gently continue on our way. Hello Michael, you're age 17 in Virginia and you want to know how long it takes to learn animal tracks. Michael, learning the actual different tracks is doesn't take particularly long because on obvious substrate or on very soft sand or easy sand, it doesn't take very long. It'll take you about a week or 2 to learn most of the tracks that we have out here. But then the real skill to learning the tracks, of course, is when you don't get a complete track in good substrate. So perhaps you have some quite hard ground and you just get the corner of a toe or a scuff mark here or a scuff mark there. Or you learn how to track, say, a buffalo or a rhino just from watching where they've been eating. And the actual following of tracks can take years and years if you really want to get into it. So, to learn the very basics of it, I suppose a bit like learning an instrument, If you learn to play the guitar, you can learn in probably 3 weeks, 3 chords, and you can play 100 songs. But to master the instrument, you will need many, many years. And it's very similar with tracking. So you'll be able to identify a buffalo and an elephant and a lion track on a good substrate within a few weeks. But to really master the art of following tracks and identifying all the tiny little tracks that you find out here, that is a lifelong pursuit of many, many years. And the best trackers dedicate themselves to it completely. It's just like any other profession or any other activity. If you really want to become a truly brilliant master at anything, you've got to dedicate yourself to it completely. And I'm certainly not up there with the best trackers. I can get by in this area, but some of the best trackers are making very appalling guides. They are so focused on learning the tracks and learning how to following animals. And this is an amazing thing to watch an experienced tracker following animals through the bush, where you can't see anything as to where they've walked, how they walked. Thank you for that, Michael. You can see that the sun is now quite bright in our eyes, and, well, it's going to be another scorcher. Peggy, nice question. Why don't I wear sunglasses? Two reasons. Firstly, I can't very well look at you with sunglasses on. That would just be very rude of me. And secondly, I seem to be unable to keep a pair of sunglasses without either slamming it in a door, slamming them in a door, sitting on them, driving over them, or losing them. So I'm planning on getting some on my next leave, which begins in 2 days' time. But whether I'll manage to retain ownership of those sunglasses until I even get back here remains to be seen. It's unbelievably bright this morning. I think there's something in the atmosphere. Hey, Brian? It is brighter than normal, hey? I can't look up at the moment. It's searing. We're barely at 6 o'clock in the morning, and you can see the light has already turned from that golden dawn light into the kind of washed out, overexposed light of much later in the day. Okay, we're just going to drive around here, see if we can't pick up any tracks of perhaps a leopard or two. Lions, I'm afraid, still no sign in this area. Plenty on Buckelshoek. So were you visiting Djuma, you would have wonderful lion sightings. There are some young impala. Now, I asked a question about impala the other day, about how to age them, and we were looking at some this age, and nobody got back to me with an answer, so I was very upset because I felt rejected. But these ones are very clearly and obviously just over a year old. They're very easy to assess the age of an impala, of course, because they are all born in November. And so if you see an impala with horns that size, you know that in January, you know that they are 1 year and 3 months old, or 1 year and 2 months old. There they run. Tremendously athletic creatures. And come November, when they're 2 years old, there will just be a slight turn in the horns. They'll still be facing slightly towards each other, and then during the course of their third year, they'll open out a bit, and then they will be ready to start fighting for mating opportunities. This is, of course, what all mammal males must do if they wish to leave a genetic legacy. Nice question. You want to know when was this area first settled by Europeans? Well, the Great Trek began, if I'm not mistaken, around 1836, and that was basically what precipitated European settlement of this area. And the Great Trek was basically the Dutch settlers of the Cape deciding that they didn't really wish to be around the British settlers of the Cape. The British came in and annexed the place and tried to impose tax, banned slavery, and the Dutch settlers then hopped into their ox wagons and headed for the hills, as it were. They crossed the Karoo, and eventually I think Louis Trichardt, he was the first kind of Boer frontiersman, foot trekker, to reach the northern parts of the Lowveld, and he crossed the mountains, if I'm not mistaken, around 1842-ish, I think. And he then crossed over. He tried to make it all the way to Delagoa Bay, which was now Maputo, where the Portuguese were. So the Portuguese have been making forays into this area for many years. and I think he was eventually killed by malaria. So the area at the time, the sort of mid-19th century, was a disease-riddled area, and because of that, not many people lived here permanently at all. And then, so what would happen is that the local people would bring their cattle in here in the winter time when the sleeping sickness from the tsetse fly and the malaria from the mosquito was not so high. Then in the summer months, they'd either head to the coast or they'd head back up into the mountains. And so that was the first foray of white settlers in the area. And then they came in increasing numbers up from the Cape and Natal. And eventually what they started to do, this just became a hunting area. And so the Boers were first, and then the Poms got wind of it, and they came bucketing up here as fast as possible when they realized how many animals there were in the area. And the whole-scale slaughter of elephants and large game began when guns arrived in the area, and it was ivory mainly that inspired people to be in this area. Also, thoughts of gold. There still is a gold mine not too far from here in the mountains at Pilgrim's Rest, and that also attracted a whole lot of sort of European settlement, and then also more and more hunters. So Eric, I hope that answers your question. They did then eventually, in the sort of early 20th century, they did try ranching here. They tried to run cattle on this land. It's not good for cattle. That's because the soil is poor, and therefore the forage is poor, and so only the indigenous animals here are adapted to living here. And then they tried to farm a bit of cotton, I think, at one stage. That was also a bit of a disaster. And so eventually it all went back to wildlife. And there was a great big event around 1896 or 1898, when the rinderpest, which is a sort of cattle-borne disease, swept through this area and it basically wiped out. I think it wiped out something like 90% of the cloven-hooved animals out here. And what that did was to take away the tsetse fly, and that eventually opened the area up far more to human settlement, because it killed the tsetse fly, which meant it killed sleeping sickness or trypanosomiasis, which is a very nasty disease, and that kind of opened the area up to settlement. So there's a brief history lesson for you, Eric. I may have got my dates slightly mixed up. That's the best I can do for now. So Liz, you're in Wisconsin, and nice question. You want to know if the Kruger National Park is named after the guy who created the park? Yes and no. So Paul Kruger was the incredible man. I mean, he was the Boer leader during the Anglo-Boer War, or what is now called the South African War, which ended in 1902. And he was certainly not around in 1926 when the park was named after him, but he was around when it was mooted as the Sabi Game Reserve in the late 19th century. And Paul Kruger, of course, was in some schools hailed as a great conservationist visionary. Slightly more cynical and more well-researched people will describe him as basically just a biltong hunter. And so I think it was slightly more a marketing gimmick than it was a testament to his conservation prowess. He certainly was a brilliant leader of men, and he led the Boers against the British Empire, where they gave them a real run for their money, despite being vastly outnumbered and outgunned during the course of the South African War. But to describe him as a visionary conservationist, I think would be to give him perhaps a little bit too much credit. So while it is named after him, and certainly he was the president of the Transvaal Republic when the initial discussions, that would initial discussions were mooted on this little cluster leaf. All that goes. It's just on low down there, Brian. Low down, there's a scraggly bush in front of the fallen trees. Can you see it?
Oh, there.
Well spotted. There are two of them there. I think these are special ones. I think these are Bennett's woodpeckers. No, the cardinals. Two beautiful little cardinal woodpeckers. Isn't that special? Wonderful. And if they're not youngsters who've just come out of a nest. Oh, that's too sweet. This is the best sighting you'll have of these little birds. That is fantastic. Seems to be a little bit of a bird party. I've seen a couple of flycatchers around here. More of a dawn chorus breaking now. A couple of hornbills calling. Pop, 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 pop. And there's a crested barbet. Brian? I can't see.
No, I lost them now.
What a great sighting. Two cardinal woodpeckers. You can see them flitting about in there. There you go. More than two there. Just the two. But the reason I say I think they're youngsters is that they are the same sex. Good grief. Teresa, that is quite astonishing. You say these are the first for your bird list out here. That's not so astonishing, but the number of your bird list is massively impressive. 216 birds you've seen here on camera. Now, I wouldn't be so amazed if it hadn't been on camera. But 216 is not much. I mean, that's pretty close to our total bird list, I would imagine. So if you look at these fellows here, those were cardinal woodpeckers, and I mean at first glance they all look rather the same, but those ones were little and they had that kind of fronting, unless they were too small to be golden tailed, I'm pretty sure. I think they were two little males. I'm now starting to doubt myself slightly. I'm pretty sure that's what they were. You can still hear them going. Ba, 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 ba. There, I can see them actually. I'm just going to have a quick look with my binoculars, these powerful binoculars of mine, to make sure that I'm comfortable that they're cardinals and not little golden tails. See enough here. Let me just sneak forward. I reckon reckon our total bird list around here, probably with vagrants, is maybe tops 300, maybe. So to get 216 on camera, that is really a remarkable achievement. I'm amazed that we've managed to film 216 birds. I know how we're going to do this. I can't see them anymore. I'm just going to play the call because I can hear them going. Now the golden tail has a call that goes wah, but they also have a little chirping call. So let's quickly have a look here on the bird app. Woodpecker. This is the cardinal's call. That is the cardinal. Right. Now let's try and play the golden-tailed. Golden-tailed. Play. Yes, we know that one. Yes. Yes, give us your other one, come on. Right, I think we're going to go with the cardinal and that stick with our original assessment, because this apparently says that just golden tail just makes it very sort of a skull drilling nasal whine. All right, on we go. So just to complete the story of Paul Kruger, great military leader, inspiration to his people, conservationist, possibly not. Probably more, certainly he was described by a number of sources as seeing, when he saw a wildebeest, he saw biltong running along. And biltong, for those of you who don't know, is the equivalent of beef jerky. There's some wattled starlings, a huge flock of wattled starlings on the floor there. Beef jerky, of course, is considered a survival ration in the United States. Out here, much like the rusk, it is considered a delicacy. Now these birds, nomadic birds, arrive in great numbers and then disappear, and you don't see them sometimes for years. Foraging around for invertebrates, largely insect eaters. They will eat seeds if they can find them. They've been very lucky to find a grass plant that's managed to produce a seed this season. You can hear the grey hornbills going. Plaintive call. So sad. It's quite a miserable call, isn't it? Very beautiful. All right, there we go. On we head. Helping Jamie with her tracking, because they're watching the Arethusa Dam camera, of course, where those wild dogs might arrive. So do keep an eye on it if you're watching multiple screens. The Arethusa Dam cam is where it's at, as they say. So perhaps swap your Juma Dam cam view for the Arethusa one. There will be some wild dogs running past there fairly soon. Some impala taking shelter in the shade. Alright, let's head across to Jamie. She's going to tell us about her tracking with the wild dogs. I'm going to head to Treehouse Dam. See you now.
We've arrived at Arethusa Dam, and absolutely everything is shouting. The monkeys just stopped, that monkey up there on the top of the boerbean. He was chattering away at something. The geese are alarm calling. There's the monkey surveying. The geese are all in a tree. There's male leopard tracks coming down in towards the dam, but they look like they're from last night, which makes me think that he may even have spent a little bit of time here before going back on himself, just because everything's gone quiet now. And the geese are chattering, but Egyptian geese are renowned for alarm calling long after the threat has passed. I think let's try and check in the opposite direction. You guys keep an eye on the Arethusa Dam camera, see if anything pops out there. Keep a close eye, because I'm not sure which direction these alarm calls are trying to tell me. The monkeys were looking over this side. The squirrels were chattering as well, and so were the guinea fowl. Almost all of that suggests to me that there's a leopard in the vicinity, and the fact that the Egyptian geese are up in trees is particularly telling. This is a favorite leopard hotspot. These tracks crossed from this road straight into here. But the fact that the monkeys aren't still alarm calling tells me that I don't think the threat is walking in this direction. They would still be chattering if it was. So, where is this creature gone? I'm still on the lookout for the wild dogs as well. Now, the animals alarm calling here are not alarm calling at a wild dog. The wild dogs are not a threat to things like monkeys or Egyptian geese or squirrels. So generally you find those animals don't alarm call. I'm just going to stop for a moment. Take my earpiece out. Squirrel shouting there. Go back that way. I'm on the wrong side of the drainage line. Oh, the excitement. Keeping us busy this morning. Oops. No, definitely on the other side of the drainage line, whatever it is. These drainage lines are so tricky. You've got to move fast because a leopard at this time of the morning is on the move. Whoops. Books sliding everywhere. Binoculars sliding everywhere. Chaos. Reigns supreme. Let's find the squirrel. See if he can guide us to wherever the threat is. Egyptian geese sitting in trees, guinea fowl sitting in trees, that is a very, very good indication that a leopard's come wandering through. Where's his tracks? Gotta be here somewhere, surely. And squirrel, if you are crying wolf, well, then it's crying wolf. Or leopard. Still hear it chattering. They go on their alarm call for quite a long time when they've seen a leopard. It could be a bird of prey, but unlikely then that the Egyptian geese would be in a tree, especially in a dead tree. Makes them even more of a target. Eyes peeled, everybody. Got it. Got it. Hey. Boom. So good. Are we heroes? Yes, we're heroes. Hey, Tibbs? At the same time. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a satisfying feeling. Good morning and thank you, guinea fowl. Looks like... Okay, I'm not even going to try. Let's just wait and see. We're close to the Arathusa Dam, very, very close to the Arathusa Dam. Hello, boy. Oof, but you're impressive. What's that behind him? What is hiding there? Who is this? Looks like a very familiar male to me. Ooh, one very brave Nyala. Oh, it looks like Tingana to me. Hello, boy. Oh, Nyala, you're being very brave. Tibbs, if you go up slightly, just above him, over the log, there is something walking through. I think it's an Nyala, and it's about to bark. I think it's worked out that he's there. Or has it? No, it has not. Guys, bear with me one moment. I just need to call this in. Oh, that's very loud. Hello, boy. Hey, look at that face. I'm just keeping my voice down. He's sleeping. Oh, no. Get up. He wants to be asleep. Our stations, if you're interested, I've got Maduro Ingwe on just off the Northern Safari Road, close towards the Arathusa Dam. Our stations, I can't copy you clearly, but you're more than welcome to make your way. Northern Safari Donga, close to the pump house actually. Right, thank you squirrels, thank you guinea fowl. And that just goes to show that listening to calls in the bush is the way forward. They told us where to come.
Okay, anybody else joining bedside step?
Tom, you've asked a really good question about alarm calls. So, do other animals respond to the alarm calls of others by automatically alarm calling, or do they wait until they've seen what the threat is? And it's a bit of a combination of both in my experience. What they'll do is as soon as one creature spots something, it looks and alarm calls, it's looking in that direction, and immediately the other animals will follow its gaze and where its attention's focused, and almost inevitably they then spot the threat and race across or start alarm calling or race out of harm's way. With guinea fowl, what I've noticed is that when one starts, they all seem to start. Having had that incredible sighting a while ago with Tingana and the guinea fowl, we know that they're not the brightest necessarily of creatures, and it seems that one alarm calling automatically sets off the other alarm calling, even though it doesn't quite know what it's alarm calling at. So it depends on the animal. Squirrels, I've noticed, sometimes respond in kind, and go-away birds also, it's hard to tell whether or not they've spotted the actual threat.
All day.
Cool, man. What a good way to start the morning, hey, Tibbs? Your favorite animal? Fairly certain it's Tingana. It looks like Tingana to me. He's big and he's full. So, Dennis, when I said to you that I thought the leopard had a bit of a head start on us, he did. Luckily for us, he decided to stick around, and he might even have killed something. He's up. Something's... Yep, there we go. He's been spotted. Can you hear that bark? It's going to happen again. Or not. There you go. That's the Inyala. Bit behind the times. So there you also have an answer to the question about alarm calls. Inyala don't automatically respond. They wait until they've seen the threat. Deep bark. And if we were on foot hearing that, or even in the vehicle, we'd be racing towards it, because nothing provokes a response in Nyala like that but leopards or lions. He's not too bothered. Seen this behavior with him a lot. And usually Karula or Shadow would have slunk away. And Teresa, you wanted to know what the name Tingana means, because quite often he's spotted something. Sorry, Teresa. Give me 1 second. He's attracted by the noise of the Inyala moving off in the bushes. He knows they've seen him, but the question is that going to deter him from hunting them? There's one coming really close. There's one, I think the same one that was walking up. No, it spotted him. He's watching it move past. And they're racing away. They're in very dense vegetation, so it'd be impossible for Tibbs to get a visual of them, but I can see the flashes of white as they run away. And just by lifting his head, he gave his position away completely. I don't think he was interested in hunting them. That belly looks quite full to me. Awesome stuff. To see his reaction. Here's that thick dewlap of his. He's still listening, and the reason he's so alert is it's a good way of making sure nothing sneaks up on him as well. Doesn't pay to ignore noises in the bush. Here he's up. And looking backwards over his shoulder. Don't think he wants to spend too much time around an area where he's being spotted. We're going to try and stay with him. This is a very, very tricky area. So there is a chance that we might lose visual of him. There we go, they're pretty foul again. Going to go into this thicket. I can't cross here, so let's get our last visuals of him before I have to reposition around him. Where is he going to go? We might get lucky. He might stay on the side of the drainage line. Oh, look at that. In this incredible morning light. Just a slither of spots. Guys, I need to reposition and I need to race around. While I do that, let's pop back across to James. I'll be with you shortly.
In the Arabic word zarafa. Now, if you happen to be a person who speaks Arabic, you are looking at the fur. Oh, that's a wonderful shot of zarafa, or the giraffe. Beautiful southern giraffe, one of 9 subspecies, of course, and this one, the only one we get here. And we were so close to him, but quite astonishingly, I nearly drove clean past him. I was looking at tracks and looking about the place. Brian was looking the other direction, hoping to see what he could see, and then I suddenly looked to the right, and there was a deeply surprised-looking giraffe standing not more than maybe 10 feet from the road. He moved off a little bit when we reversed back, but now he's watching us while he chews his breakfast for the second time. And if you listen carefully, you can actually hear him chewing. You can also hear the swish of his tail. You hear that? Click, click, click of his jaw, his teeth grinding up. Swish, swish. Otherwise, all is very peaceful out here. You can see he's riddled with ticks, and it's because he hasn't been found clearly by the oxpeckers yet today. They haven't come to remove the ticks from in front of his ears there. Lots and lots of ticks all the way up the horns there. And he's been particularly confiding. I think he's quite enjoying watching us also. You know, it's quite entertaining for him to have something to look at while he has to re-chew his food. And you can see the back of his head there. That was that's the back of the skull, which I think, I keep forgetting which is which of the first 2 cervical vertebrae. The axis and axle joint is there, and in a giraffe it's so pronounced because that joint is able to bend 180 degrees. Now, wherever you're sitting, stick your head back and try and just articulate the first joint in your neck, and you'll find that you can probably turn that joint, if you're particularly supple, about 90 degrees. But you cannot do it 180 degrees. It just gives the giraffe that extra reach up into the trees. As far as I know, there are not many other mammals at all who can do that, if any. Lovely eyelashes. This camera really is quite remarkable the way it gets in there. I mean, we aren't very close to him, but still. Beautiful detail of his skin. You can see how washed out the sky is, actually. I mean, I do make quite a lot of mention of heat and the kind of drought, and it might sound a little bit kind of dreary and almost sort of, I don't know, depressing. It isn't. It's fascinating to watch an area in condition like this. We know that the drought will eventually break, and it will become that much sweeter when it does. I just hope that I'm here when it does. Right, Jamie's got her leopard again. Let's head straight back there, and we'll see what else we can find.
Rechts. From which side is cross? Shadow. Yeah, well.
There we go.
Safari driveway, she's
Beautiful Tingana. Perfectly highlighted in the morning sun. Sitting like a king upon a throne on a termite mound. We're actually perfectly eye level with him here. The reason I'm not moving any closer, first of all, is because, or looking for a better position, is first of all because he is quite unsettled. But also, secondly, there are other vehicles. Oh, he's up, making their way to the sighting. Nope, he's just repositioning himself. Cool. Okay, and you can shift forward a little bit. Here comes my vehicle. Hear it? Awesome. Oh yes, Teresa. Sorry, you wanted to know what Tingana means. To the best of my knowledge, Tingana means shy. Usually the different names are given to leopards to reflect their personalities. And I'm not sure where Tingana came from or how he got his name. Obviously would have happened long before my time. Usually leopards... Oh. Sorry guys, hold on 1 second. Go ahead.
Just want to confirm you south of the power lines.
Yeah, that's affirmative. Sorry, I'm not sure what this road's name is. I think it's Southern Safari Donga, but it's the road that leads from the pump house towards the open area around Magic Willy.
Okay, copy.
Yeah, I'm south of the power lines.
You copy, Safari Donga then.
Sorry guys, just chatting a little bit to the Arathusa guides, letting them know where the sighting is. Ah, look, we've got all kinds of things happening. Hold on 1 moment, guys.
Standby available.
Guys, I know that many of you will have reported that the wild dogs are on the Arathusa Dam camera. We'll spend a bit of time with Tingana first and then we'll head there. Stations, apparently, there's my Dutch showing up on the Arathusa Dam camera.
Thanks, Jamie. Coming down this St. Lela, am I going to get you a visual from the road?
That's affirmative. You will, I'm on the road.
Thank you.
Sure. All of a sudden it's much warmer and we have decisions to make as to where we're going to be. I think let's spend as much time as possible with Tingana before he disappears. I've told the other Arathusa guides about the wild dogs at the Arathusa Dam. So they should...
confirm it's my dash feed. The dash there around Safari Dam. Okay. Jamie, you're a star. Thank you so much.
No problem. You can thank the monkeys. Just going to shift up ever so slightly so that our friend here has a chance to see the leopard as well. Oh, no, just wait a moment. Let him approach first. He's found a nice position. And I think we'll just, we'll stay here for the moment. We've got a nice visual at a nice distance. Otherwise, if I move forward... yeah, if I move forward ever so slightly and change the position, we'll have other safari guests in our shot, which they're also enjoying this wonderful sighting with us. And he really is the most extraordinarily beautiful male. He's right in his prime. That huge neck that is essentially head and shoulders. Now, we're not going to rush off to the wild dogs. We'll stay with Tingana as long as possible. And yes, Debbie, I've said it was Tingana. And you wanted to know if leopards have unique spots or patterns that help to tell them apart. Yes, they do. The official way is to look at the top row of whisker spots, and they usually have a combination of 2, 3, or 4. Sometimes they have 1. What's up, boy? Where are you going? And this is why I wanted to stay with Tingana, because there's a very good chance we could lose him fairly soon. Walking slowly. He's not really in any great hurry.
Don't go south. There's my ball again. We'll try and keep him.
Now the problem with the area that he's moving in, why we're not crashing through, is that it is a tambuti thicket. So what that means is those trees are incredibly delicate. We can't drive over them in order to keep up with him. We just have to try and keep a visual of him from the road. He's moving into the drainage line. I'm going to try and get ahead of him, because there is another vehicle here which he can actually possibly help us to try and keep a view. I'm just letting these guys go ahead of us. Cheers. To see if we can find a nice way down. It's going to be very, very tricky. I think I'm going to go around and try and meet him on the other side. I don't think he's going to go far. I think he's going to settle down in this thicket. But as I said, it's a very fragile ecosystem, this particular aspect, which means that we have to be very careful about how we approach this sighting. Driving in here and driving over trees could do a tremendous amount of damage to the environment, which is why I wanted to stay with Tingana for as long as possible. The other side towards the power lines, and we unfortunately have quite a large distance to travel before we can go round. And please forgive the radio blaring. I'm just going to make sure that I can hear all of the updates in case one of the other guys bumps in before I do. Yummy, eating dust. The guards is going to attempt to forge a path. I just want to get onto Arathusa radio and just find out if anybody is responding to those wild dogs. Oh my goodness, thick stuff. We did know that there was a considerable chance that Tingana was going to disappear into this. Okay, but at least we've got the magical eagle-eyed Tebs on the back to help us spot him again. I'm just keeping the car in low range, that's why it's making that whiny sound, so that we don't have to stop to change gear. We do go off-road. And this is where the wild dogs came down to the dam. You sneaky creatures. I see your tracks.
David, you coming?
Where did Tingana vanish?
Are you going towards Magic Window open side or which direction? I'm approaching Magic Window.
Yeah, he was between Magic Valley open and sort of halfway between the Pampas and Magic Valley open. He was going north and east.
Okay, thank you.
See if he's around here. Okay. I'll listen for alarm calls. Might have to spend a little bit of time off the vehicle walking at this point. At the moment, I can only hear vehicles moving through. Can't see him anywhere. Standing by.
In the area you're in, over there on the opposite side, sort of the area he was going to. I'm not sure if he crossed the score or not.
Copy. I'm just standing by here for the moment, just listening to see if maybe the squirrels give him away. I'm just trying to figure out if he's crossed into this drainage line or not. If we can't, what's that movement there? Oh, that's the vehicle. Never mind. If we can't, then you might have to spend a little bit of time trying to relocate him on foot. The problem with Tingana and tracking on foot is that he moves away. He's actually quite shy on foot. Maybe that's where the name Tingana came from. Unlike Karula, who's perfectly comfortable with people around her, as long as they keep a respectful distance, Tingana gets very nervous and he moves straight into thick bush and he just keeps moving away. So I'm reluctant to do that unless he pops out, unless we absolutely have to. Go away birds are chuckling, but not really alarm calling. Sure, what an exciting morning. A quick question for those of you watching the Arathusa Dam camera. Are there other vehicles at that wild dog sighting? Because I need to know, otherwise I need to send people there. Okay. I just want to know so that I know whether we need to send somebody there to keep up with them, particularly if they decide to move.
Some meat here as well. With me.
Okay, correct.
Sure, they're going to shout out where the thing was maybe.
Pardon? Okay, it seems as though the wild dogs are going over the dam wall. I just want to call this in on the radio stations. Is there anyone with those Madutch? Looks as though they're on the move again.
There's nobody on lock there.
Okay, copy. There's a hyena there. Okay, it looks as though from the camera they're moving east away from the dam, across the bridge.
Let's go more east there.
Sorry, the Madutch are moving west in the camera. And I see the Misi as well.
Okay,
Okay, so there's 2 hyenas.
Come again? Standing by. Standing by for you. Stand by 6. Stand by 6. 2 by 6. Stand by 6. Stand by 6. Thank you, I'll grab that.
Sure. Where is he gone? Okay. I'm going to do a look back onto the road. See if I can't pick him up from this side. Did you spot anything with those binoculars, Tibbs? No. Seeing tree branches.
Station copying. There is Mataj at
Oh, what? Sorry? Okay. Alright, we'll move back there in a moment. I see the hyena moving through. I want to just see if they spook him out of hiding. So let's go around a pan. So hyenas, I've seen Tingana with hyena before. He tends to just give them a low growl and then ignore them. But that doesn't mean that's the way things are going to work today. He's big enough that a hyena would not tangle willingly with him. I think Tingana might have given us all the slip. There's one vehicle on that side of the drainage line and one here. I'm just checking behind us, making sure that he's not sneaking around the back while we're not looking. And in this thick drainage line, there's a chance he might have vanished off somewhere here. You can hear the other vehicle moving, so they are trying to keep track of him. I wonder if he spent the night around here, if it's the same leopard that Dennis saw.
Hello?
Sure.
Stand by 6 behind all. 6 behind left.
There's lots and lots of people wanting to approach this leopard sighting as well. Where are you, boy? Where did you slip off to? So quick to move. There's some arrow-marked babblers over there. Let's have a look at those for now. He's sitting on top of that stump there, sticking out of the tree. And they usually are the sorts of birds that might give it away. If we go up a little bit, Tevs, he is sitting, there he is. This is the sort of bird that might start to babble in response to the presence of a leopard moving through. I'm going to need to coordinate with some of the other guides with the search, which means a fair amount of time spent on the Game Drive channel. Standing by.
I just want to find out how big a lift do you want me to make?
Sorry, please repeat that question. I couldn't hear you clearly.
I just want to know how big a loop do you want me to make? How much time do you need to be with Ingrid?
Okay, copy. Once we relocate him, if we relocate him, we'll spend 5 minutes with him and then we'll pull out.
Jamie, I don't know if you copy, but you've got him here on the southern side again.
Okay, copy. No, I didn't copy that. Thank you. I'm going to make my way there. I'll spend 5 minutes with him and then I'll pull out of the sighting. Guys, they've got him. There is a huge amount of people waiting and wanting to see him. I'm going to send you back across to James while I head back that way. and then I'll be back with you very shortly when we're with our last few moments with Tingana.
Oh, okay.
Elephants, everybody, elephants all over the place. Well, not all over the place, about 10 of them. And we just had an amazing sighting of the little one, which I don't know if some of you will remember, of course, Wrinkly Bottom, so named by Brent Leo Smith, distinctly unimaginative name. But the little one that you can see just over there gave us a bit of a show. He reared up on his back legs, and then he ran away towards his mother. He looked very indignant indeed. I just don't want to get too close to them now because there's such a nice clearing here and I don't want them to go into the bush. They are a little bit nervy this morning for some reason. There's a water buck there. It's all happening. So incredibly peaceful. I was saying we were sitting with that giraffe earlier. Most soporific kind of atmosphere. There's Mrs. Elephant, and it's her little son who was giving us a bit of a show. Then he ran off, and if you've ever watched an elephant run, it is an amazing thing to see. Elephants can't run, they speed walk. They do it very fast. But it is a very funny thing to watch a little one running. Not so funny when you're watching an adult running at you. And just roll forward down the hill here. There's, the rest of the herd is coming through. Oh, there's the cow with the collar, right? Just off to the front there. Why they're possibly, I mean, they're not nervous, but they certainly are moving away from the vehicle. You'll be able to see the battery pack on the top of that collar. When she moves her head there, you can see it there. So that will be some kind of research that's being done, probably by the Kruger National Park. I don't think it's being done by the Sabi Sands, but of course these elephants will move in and out of the Sabi Sands and into Kruger all the time. The little one walking past there. Quite a big herd, this. I initially thought about 10. I think they're probably about 20 animals now. And you'll find little groups, little herds combining to make much bigger ones as the drought continues, because as the water becomes more and more concentrated, so the animal herds will become more and more concentrated and will become that much larger. There's a fish eagle, an adult fish eagle flying above us there, and that's presumably we might be able to get a nice picture of it. Look at that, everyone. Look at that. That's so cool. That is fantastic. What a shot. That, everybody, is the African fish eagle. It's an iconic bird. Many people's favorite call, and it looks, to those of you in the States, almost exactly like your bald eagle. It is slightly smaller than the American bald eagle, because everything in America is larger, of course, and it is the same genus, so it's very closely related to the bald eagle. Isn't that great? A question coming through from Georgie while we watch that incredible bird flying and then head back to the elephants very skillfully. I hope you're appreciating the camera work being done by Brian there. Georgie, you want to know how long it takes to learn the scientific names of all the animals and things? It depends really on your ability to remember things. It takes me a while. I have to keep constantly repeating them myself. So I don't like the sound of the engines heard. So if I'm learning a new tree, I have to keep repeating the Latin name to myself. Some people just read it once and they know it. So this cow's not that pleased to see us. He'll be okay though. She seems to have relaxed a bit now. So I mean, Georgie, it really just does depend on your ability to remember things. I was thinking to myself this very morning, actually, I was trying to remember the Latin name of the sneezewood, which was a tree that I just learned that Steph taught me, and it's just disappeared from my head. I've no doubt it will come back at some stage. I cannot remember the Latin name of the sneezewood. Let's sneak a little bit further forward. Try and move without starting the engine, but no, that's not going to work. Needed that little push forward. You can see that cow is just showing us she's not very happy to see us. She's very young. Might actually be a young bull, but I think it's a cow. So the herd not very relaxed. I'm certainly not going to follow them into the thick bush here. I think you might have to find that it's got something to do with the fact that cow, last time I saw this herd was a few days ago. It did exactly the same sort of thing. It got very nervous, well, not very nervous, but just didn't want to be, as soon as it opened a bit of distance between us and them, they relaxed a bit and carried on feeding. I suspect it might have something to do with the experience of having the collar put on that what looks to be the matriarch of the herd. I'm not sure, but they like to keep a bit of a distance from the vehicles. They've headed into some thick bush there, where they'll find some nice greenery to eat, probably some knobthorns, maybe the odd bit of leadwood. The 20 elephants have just disappeared into this thicket. Totally silent, can't hear them. Just the odd little bit of braking, and they've gone totally invisible. Alright, let's move on. Now, Targa, we're heading towards Wivelshoek Dam, where of course there is no water. And you want to know how on earth elephants know where there's water. What sense do they use, and how are they able to find it? Targa, I don't know that it's any one sense. I'm pretty sure that they can feel it under the ground when they're walking in riverbed areas. They've got very sensitive nerve endings in their feet. I think they can feel the movement of water underground, and that's certainly one way that they find water. They dig in dry riverbeds and seemingly dry riverbeds, and they find water to drink. That's one way that they do it. Can they smell it? Maybe they can smell it, but I would suspect that they have to be pretty close to it to smell it. But I think a large proportion of the time when they are finding water, what you'll find is that it's cows, old cows in the herd teaching the younger ones where they find water. And you know, they're one of the only species, as I've said a few times before, that will, you know, where the female females will survive beyond breeding age, and that is probably because they play a role in transferring information to younger generations. I think we find that there's a lot that teaching the matriarch does. There's a lot to do with where the water is, where the good grazing is, and all of that sort of thing. Right, get out of here. I think the final controller is going to look up the bird with the tree for me. This is a sneeze wood final control. Sneeze as an achoo wood. There we go. Hello Rain, you're aged 15. A very valid question. Of course, how on earth do you get the collar on an elephant? You don't just sort of hold out a couple of dog biscuits and hope that it will kneel while you put the collar on. Rain, you see, this is why it's quite a traumatic experience. I think, in fact, it definitely is. They would have had to dart her, basically anaesthetize her, so she'd go to sleep. They'd put the collar on, and then they'd wake her up again, and she'd go off. Now, what would happen is, I think she's the matriarch of the herd, so they'd probably come in a helicopter, fly above the herd, which would be traumatic. They'd stick the dart in her, she'd fall over, and the rest of the herd wouldn't know what was going on, so it would be very confusing, probably be very scary. They'd land the chopper there, or either bring a vehicle in. They'd put the collar on, and they'd do it as quickly as possible, they'd do it as humanely as possible, then they give her an antidote, and she'll wake up almost immediately, and they'll get out of the way. And I think you'll find that would have been relatively traumatic. Right, Jamie's got the dogs. Let's go straight across to her. I'll head to Bubblesook Dam.
With the wild dogs on the other side of the dam wall. Well done, everybody. Considerable teamwork involved in keeping track of everything that was happening here. Just an update on Tingana. They still can see him, but they can only fit 2 vehicles in to watch him. So I've pulled out of the lineup because there's lots and lots of people who are desperate to see him. So I've left the sighting for now. And depending on what happens with the wild dogs and with all the people who are trying to have a chance to see them, we will pop into that sighting afterwards and check up on him, just depending on what he does. In the meantime, we've got some precious time with the wild dogs. And those big round radar ears that I was talking about earlier. We're also going to be limited in the time that we can spend with the wild dogs as well. There are other people interested in the sighting. And I'm afraid you just have to bear with the beeps from my radio for now. He's watching. It's very difficult for Tebs to show us, but directly behind us there's a buffalo, a male buffalo. Oh, trotting off. So they haven't, it doesn't look like they've eaten this morning. And I'm just wondering whether they're not going to go hunting. This adults, the rest of them are fairly settled. The pups are sleeping in the shade. I'm trying to keep eyes. There's actually wild dogs everywhere now that I look at it. We're right in the middle of them. I didn't realize a moment ago, but that's probably the clearest view that we have of those pups. There's a wild dog in front of me there. Oh, they're up. The whole pack is up. And they're racing towards the dam. Just watch the antenna there, Tibbs. I'm going under this tree. Good. And we're just going to get over this log. See what they're doing and where they've gone. They've gone towards the dam. all good back there, Ted. Sorry about that. They heard a herd of wildebeest. This could be interesting. Wildebeest don't like wild dogs. There's the whole herd. It actually looks like our herd. If we've been watching on Voyatella. Dog scooting.
Coming for the dog.
Doing just what domestic dogs do when they get worms and they get itchy bottoms. That was very funny. So we've seen these wild dogs get chased by wildebeest before, but they could. Oh, still itchy. No, it's still itchy. It's known as scooting. And I think they all yelped and jumped up because they heard something coming to the dam. It wasn't what they expected. It was wildebeest, and they're reluctant to tackle an entire herd of wildebeest. We've seen them be chased by wildebeest before. Not sure where the pups went, actually. They must have settled down further behind the adults in the shade. This is the Investec pack again. Here comes one of the males. Hello guys. There's all three adults together. The two males on the right and the one female on the left. And I think they might be actually trotting back towards the shade where the pups were. They just came for a brief investigation of the wildebeest herd.
That's on the highway at the moment. Looks like facing north. There's all the bombs going in where there's no space for two movers still. Can we give a standby next afternoon?
Okay, let's try and stay with them. Sorry, I'm listening with half an ear to the radio to try and figure out exactly how many people want to come and see the wild dogs as well. It's very busy here this morning. Let's just figure out where these adults have gone, where the best approach is from. The problem with this sighting is that it's now in front of the lodge, which means in theory it becomes a two-vehicle sighting. Nobody's called that yet, but it could be that we have to pull out of here as necessary. I just want to get hold of Doug quickly. Sorry guys, hold on one moment. The wild dogs are tucked in the shade there. Fortunately, getting a clear position, and you'll be able to see the two lying in the shade. I just want to chat to Doug, guys. Just bear with me a moment. Hi, guys. How's it, Doug? How are you? Good, thank you. Does this become two-vehicle if they're in front of the lodge, or is it? Okay. Okay, perfect. All right. Yeah, this is the quarantine herd that's come down to the dam. Still with the wild dogs. They're going to settle down. I think that's pretty much what they're going to do. Although they've still, by the looks of things, got fairly empty stomachs. I think they were looking for an opportunity to present itself, which it didn't with that wildebeest herd.
Abel, come in. Thank you.
So, Brian, you were wondering a bit about this wild dog pack. It is the Investec pack, so it's the 3 adults that we just had a view of now. We've got a view of 2 of them at the moment, as far as I can see. And Brian, then they've got 11 pups between them. So the Investec pack is 14 animals in total, 2 adult males, 1 adult female, and 11 pups. And they've done exceptionally well for a small group. That's quite a tiny wild dog pack, and that's because a couple of the adult males dispersed away from this pack fairly recently. So went off in a group in search of new and exciting mating possibilities away from their original natal clan, their natal pack. And usually the males are more likely to stay than the females within wild dog packs, but that's not always the case. And if there's a nice big group of males, whether they come from 1 litter or 2, so they could be a year apart in age or so, but if you've got a nice big group of them, in this case it was 5 as far as we know, then they will disperse and move off in search of new opportunities. Oh, what an awesome, exciting morning we've had. Oh, sorry, Crystal. Maybe should be a little bit more clear. To the best of my knowledge, no. The Investec pack that we're watching at the moment and have been watching recently is not a breakaway pack. It is the original pack. It just happens that the breakaways actually happen to outnumber the number of adults in the Investec pack. So the Investec breakaways is 5 young males, to the best of our knowledge. They haven't been seen in a while, but it is 5 young males that have moved off from this pack. Whereas the Investec pack in total is the 3 adults we see plus the 11 pups. That is the Investec pack. And that is to the best of my knowledge. In terms of the pack that hangs around Open Gate, I'm not too sure what that one is called. I know that there is a very large pack that hangs around there. And if you bear with me, Crystal, a name will come to me. We were chatting about it the other day. I'll double check for you, Crystal. When I have a moment, I'll go through some of the messages that are on my phone in terms of the different animal sightings that the guides chat about. And I'll let you know which pack that might be. There is an open pack as well, which I think numbers close to somewhere in the region of 40 or so animals. There is an open pack, and then there's another pack that you might see there that moves through Manuletti, and that's the name that's escaping me. And there's the 3rd adult there, we can now see. Now, while we've been desperately busy racing around, trying to find you new and exciting sightings, I believe that James has got himself distracted cutting down trees. Let's have a quick look.
Right, hello everybody. I said to Kirsty in the final control, you can link across to us if you'd like, thinking that was a joke. She has linked across to us. I'm going to have to remove this branch from the road. Of course, this is a common occurrence now these days because the elephants are breaking more and more trees. They would normally be grazing at this time of the year, but at the moment, because there is no grass to graze, they are pulling trees off onto the road and blocking the way. I have a standard issue machete, blunt-edged, which is not very good. I shall have to have a word with VM. I think he's probably the best one to sharpen it. And I am now going to remove this tree. I am about as skilled with this as I am with the golf club game. No lack of effort on my part. So a skilled man would be able to chop this in 2 or 3 pangas. I am now going to embarrass myself with many. Very hard wood. I hope I'm managing to look very elegant while I do this. Brian, am I elegant?
Extremely elegant.
Thank you so much. I'm of course sweating profusely now, but I'm going to try not to look like I'm sweating. Or hit myself on the knee when I finally get through this very irksome piece of bush.
Bravo.
Right. It was very heroic of me, Brian. Did you notice?
I did.
Thank you.
I was watching the whole thing.
Well done. Work out here, everybody. We take great risks, of course, climbing out of the car, attacking a tree with a machete. All in the cause to bring you a wilderness experience. There we go. Right, let's go back to Jamie, stop messing around. We're going to carry on down Hyena Road.
We're still with our wild dogs. They're over there. I'm just trying to have a listen to the Game Drive channel quickly. Sorry guys, just managing the sighting at the same time, letting everybody know where they are. Okay. We just wanted to try and figure out what happened to the pups. Let's go for a quick drive and look down over the dam wall. They apparently were actually chasing hyena. That was what set them off. It wasn't the wildebeest herd that they heard. It was a hyena that moved across, which is where the pups ran off to. Interesting that the adults just are quite calm to let their pups go running off in search of hyena action to try and chase them. And I guess at this point the pups are actually big enough to really start taking care of themselves, as evidenced by the parents' apparent lack of concern. But obviously they're not lacking in concern. If they've managed between the 3 of them to keep 11 pups alive as long as they have, it's actually a fairly impressive feat. I think the female's going to go looking. Yeah, she's trotting down. Let's see if we watch from the side. She's dashing in front of me. She's actually right on top of the concrete there, so I'm trying to duck my head out of your way. As the only female, she is automatically the alpha. And as far as I know, these are her pups. I think there was another female within the Investec pack, but that was killed in some way. Not sure which way, but Michael, who is a 17-year-old viewer, Michael, you were wondering if the alpha pair or the alpha female will let another individual... Oh, you've got company? Will let another individual breed, or let a subordinate breed. Michael, I'm going to get to your question in a moment. Let's just watch them. I think they're moving back towards their pups. I can see the puppies there, sitting in the shade. Okay, so they've returned back to where they were. So we could actually loop back around to spend some time with them. Michael, yes, the alpha female does let the beta female breed on occasion, or a subordinate female breed on occasion. I'm going to face this way just so I can see what's going on with those dogs. And I can still see visual of them. They're moving through in this area here. There's some of the pups moving around here as well. And Michael, yes, it does happen. The subordinate female does breed in sort of every odd situation. Very often the subordinate pups have a much lower survival rate, and that's because the alpha female is particularly possessive over them. And she's very much restricting, or she sort of focuses on restricting access to all of the pups, including the subordinates' pups, and she'll favor her own over that of the subordinates or the beta females. Now I know that I think it is the Sands pack, actually. I could be wrong about that, but I think it's the Sand pack that this particular scenario has occurred, and the subordinate female bred as well as the alpha female, and that's led to, and actually both sets of pups have survived. Sorry, I have to concentrate on not reversing us off the concrete bridge. Luckily, is one thing that you have plenty of practice with as a guide is reversing. Watch me reverse into a concrete block just because I said that, just because I was being cocky about that. But yes, reversing skills is one that you practice and perfect very early on in your guiding career, especially because in the beginning you spend a lot of time accidentally driving past the things you're meant to be stopping for. You learn to reverse and dodge and dive around various bushes. It starts to become second nature. I find when I reverse within cities, I'm so used to not having wing mirrors that I have to keep reminding myself that they're actually there. Playing and actually being highly entertaining. Rolling over, dashing around like playful puppies should do. Try and make space for Doug, who's now stuck behind me, so that he can watch the action as well, although it looks as though the pack is moving. Once again. Moving from shade patch to shade patch. And wild dogs are just the most exciting creatures when they want to be. Can we fit under here? Yeah, we can. We just need to drop the antenna. Well done, Tibbs. Thank you. Racing across back again. Oh, zebra. The zebra's chasing the wild dogs. Dashing around after them. Racing. And that's what I mentioned about wildebeest, is that the prey animals really don't like them. So the wild dogs are dotted all around us. They're trying to move past the zebra. And Margaret, while we're racing after this wild dog pack that is keeping us continually on the move, you want to know if they're endangered or protected. They are incredibly endangered and incredibly protected. It's the most endangered predator that we have within southern Africa. They are protected by very strict laws, and we're attempting to get the population up, and it seems to keep suffering setback after setback, quite often in the form of canine diseases. at the moment, the only viable, without any interference, the only viable population of wild dogs is within the Kruger Park itself. So you're looking at 14 members of a total of about 194 within Kruger. There's a buffalo roadblock. The wild dogs have disappeared into this drainage line on my left. I can't see them anymore. I've got buffalo in front of me, which means I'm going to have to go around. The other vehicles are also trying to relocate them. And in case you're wondering about the ball of GoPros that pops into shot every now and again, that is a virtual reality rig that we have been spending a bit of time experimenting with. So yes, 194 within the, or roughly 194 within the Kruger area, the greater Kruger area, less than 500 in South Africa itself. Very, very, very endangered creatures. And that's because right up until fairly recently, it was considered good conservation practice to exterminate the vermin, and they were considered to be vermin. They were considered to be responsible for the decline in all other animals, and therefore they were exterminated. And it's only in the last 40 or so years, maybe a little bit longer in certain areas, that real... There was a time, if you read, oops, where's that going? That's going that way. There was a time, if you read a very interesting book about the beginnings of the Kruger Park, where Stevenson Hamilton talks about his first journey up towards the Kruger, or what was to become the Kruger, to investigate the game possibilities. And essentially all of the antelope had been shot out by various hunters. Oh, there they are, sleeping in the shade. His ears there. That's possibly the best view we're going to get. So I'm going to make space for one of the other vehicles, but let me just show you. There they're all sitting in the shade. Can you see them there, Tebs? Not really. You can see move. There you go. You can see one of them moving and then flopping down. So sorry, yes. So Stevenson Hamilton, on his first trip up to what was to become the Kruger area to set up a reserve, encountered so many different wild dog packs on his journey up, and discussed in great length about exterminating them as a way of bringing back the antelope populations. Entirely well-intentioned at that point. The idea was to create a conservation area. People just didn't quite realize how integral every aspect of this ecosystem really is. We've chatted a bit about the reproductive strategy. And Rhonda, welcome to the Sunrise Safari. I hope you've been enjoying the excitement of the morning as much as we have. Rhonda wants to know whether or not, or how often the female will go into estrus. It depends, Rhonda. It depends on if she falls pregnant. If the mating isn't successful, then she will go into estrus regularly. However, she breeds, so that is, has a litter of puppies, about once every year to 14 months. So she'll have a litter of pups sort of roughly every year or so in her life. And then they'll use pretty much the same den site. And it's incredible because they're such an endangered species, and yet they have such an effective reproductive strategy, because that alpha female can produce up to 20 pups. And indeed, the average falls close to around 13 pups per litter, depending on whereabouts the wild dog studies have been conducted. So she can have a huge amount of pups. The reproductive strategy should, in theory, be incredibly effective. And yet, that's actually not how it really works in practice. Somehow there's aspects of whatever interference we have had within their ecosystem and within the way that they fit within it, we've had a tremendously negative impact on the way that their population grows. Whether or not there's more to the story than that, I couldn't begin to tell you. But there's a lot of research being conducted into why, when numbers were recovering so wonderfully within the Kruger National Park in the 90s, was there a sudden drop. They couldn't really isolate any diseases. A lot of people postulate that it might have been canine distemper or rabies spread from alternate sources, from domestic sources. But to be honest, we don't really know exactly what it is that seems to make them struggle. Probably habitat loss. We've seen how much distance they can travel in a day, or how much distance? That's terrible, sorry. How far they can travel in one day. So you know how incredibly effective they can be in terms of keeping moving. Just the ears hiding in the shade. Futa, you've asked a very interesting question, and I believe that we met friends of yours recently at Voyatela Lodge that had come to stay. Mafuta, you were wondering why they don't inoculate wild dogs against canine diseases, and in certain places they do. In certain populations they do. They are attempting to pretty much to try and reduce the risk of a lot of the smaller populations or the introduced populations. It's quite tricky, and it is a process that can be quite traumatic for the wild dogs. You've got to go and dart every single member of the pack. You've seen how fast these guys move when they want to, and you can imagine if you hit one with a dart, the rest of them are going to follow, because with canine vaccinations, as I'm sure many of you know with your domestic pets, you can't do it once off. It has to be regularly done. So for them, it is a fairly long process. I'm going to try and see if I can get us a little bit closer. I think I see a way through. I just wanted to make sure before I did that none of the other vehicles wanted to go ahead of us. James Richards, you were wondering whether or not wild dogs ever raid burrows. Not to the best of my knowledge. Sure. This might be as close as we're going to get, unfortunately, without blocking any kind of a view for the other guides as well. James, as far as I know, I have never heard of wild dogs raiding burrows. I think they are strictly courses. That being said, never ever say never with animals. I don't think I could ever safely bet that no wild dog has ever explored a tunnel and come away successful. So I do think that is a possibility. I'm not sure, James. I've never heard of it happening, to be honest. But I think it's entirely possible. Definitely not something they do regularly or part of their natural behavior process. In terms of hunting, they are pretty much strictly courses. Now this Investec pack has moved away from their den site now, but when I was chatting a bit about the dog's reproductive strategy, I mentioned that they do actually have a den site, and that is for when the pups are particularly young. So in answer to that question about den sites, they do have den sites. Georgie, who's watching in Massachusetts, I hope that answers the question. They use the same den site pretty much every year, with limited exceptions, obviously. But they will move from den to den. When the pups are very young, the female keeps them within the den site itself, very similar in structure, or very similar in that they use termite mounds, just like spotted hyenas do. And they'll leave them there. The rest of the pack will go out hunting, leave them with a babysitter, and they will return and regurgitate food, both for the pups and for the babysitter, so whichever wild dog stayed behind. It's one of those fascinating aspects of their behavior, that incredible begging that they will go through. I just want to listen to the radio quickly. Sorry, guys. And while I do that, I believe that James would like to show you something. We'll be back shortly.
We are here with some beefies, everybody, at the Gallagher waterhole. Not one of them sitting now at the Vuyatela waterhole or at the Juma Dam. I suspect that's largely because the water there has not been pumped for a while, possibly in order to try and get Peter to vacate the premises and go down to the river. And just the two here, which I'm quite surprised about. We also came around here because we had some squirrels alarm calling. We did see then a Wahlberg's eagle and a batalier flying overhead, so possibly not anything very large or terrifying like a Karula the leopard. But we thought we'd just come around here and see if we couldn't find her tracks. Haven't found anything at this stage, except that broken-horned buffalo and the hornbill calling behind us. So you can see his horn is broken off and it will not grow back. A lot of people sometimes think that these things do grow back, but unlike a deer's antlers, that will not grow back. But he's also, I think quite interestingly, to me, a lot of the elephants look to be in not particularly great condition. I think they're struggling with the lack of grazing at the moment. But the buffalo, as long as they have enough to drink, their digestive systems are making the most of some pretty lean times, and they look pretty good to me, just about all of them. All of these bulls that we've seen around the Juma Dam every day, sort of up to 20 of them at a time, I think they all look in pretty much excellent condition. I just want to check the oxpecker on the top of that one and see if he is I thought I saw a flash of yellow. No, he's a standard issue red-billed oxpecker. You can see, while the buffalo's hips are sort of showing, he's certainly not in any kind of distress. And were you to see some of the cattle living outside here, outside of the reserve, you'd be astonished. They really are struggling. So Zoe, you want to know about fleas and ticks and whether the animals have a break from fleas and ticks during the winter time? Yes, absolutely they do, Zoe. Certainly fewer fleas and ticks and other parasites during the winter time, but obviously much less to eat, well, normally, if you don't have a drought. But you'll find that the animals here are very well adapted to dealing with the diseases that are given to them by ticks. They don't have a huge amount of trouble with them at all. A new animal was to come into the area, just like with a new human being. If you come into the Lowveld, you get bitten by ticks, you will get a disease called tick bite fever, which is not particularly terrifying. It's not very pleasant, but it's not bad. You just take a few antibiotics and feel rotten for a few days. But after that, you develop an immunity to it, and you can. I mean, certainly sometimes if I go for a long walk and it's very rainy and I get bitten to pieces, I might get a very mild headache for a half a day or so, and so it's the same with the animals. They have developed over many, many years a natural immunity to any of the ectoparasites that there are out here. That's not to say that their bodies are not fighting off parasites the whole time, but they're okay with them. So not much going on here at the Gallagher waterhole. I must say I'm most pleased that Jamie's managed to find leopards and wild dogs all over the place there at Arathusa. Otherwise it would have been a fairly quiet drive. All Brian high action here. There's a pig. Do you see the pig, Brian?
I do.
Going to come and have a drink, but when he spots us he will stop suddenly, as the pigs do. He might snort. He seems to have noticed us. This is wonderful. I think they're such wonderful little characters, these. Wonderful set of tusks she's got, sorry. That's Mrs. Pig. Very elegant, thin tusks. The one's her bottom tusk. There we go. That's what I was looking for. That kind of sudden stop, an assessment of the situation. I wonder if this Mrs. Pig doesn't have new piglets, and she's just coming to feed herself. You can see she's probably lactating with those very long teeth that she's got. Possibly she's stashed her little piglets in a termite mound not far behind. She's having a drink. There's also an impala ram coming up to drink, slaking their thirst as the heat builds despite the earliness of the hour. Time of the year, your best bet of actually seeing animals, apart from, yes, going out in the early morning for a couple of hours is a good idea, but then come 7 o'clock I would be sat under the shade at a waterhole like this for the rest of the day, and then you'll see lots and lots of different things coming down to drink. Impala's been quite brave. Most seldom do they just walk to the water and drink without looking around constantly to see what might be coming to eat them. You can see they're having a long drink. Also perhaps hear some of the cicadas firing up. Click, 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 click. And I just wonder if Karula isn't watching from the shadows here. She's getting on a little, of course, as we know, and a big female warthog like this and a big male impala probably at the size limits of what she'll be prepared to take on at the moment. But certainly, I think she'd think about it if she were close by. I'd be interested to know from our viewers who've been watching for a while what the largest prey you've ever seen Karula eat is. I'm under the impression that she's a sort of impala ewe is about the size maximum for her, but I might be wrong. So if you've seen Karula eating something bigger than that, please let us know. There is the impala looking a bit surprised. They are drinking and drinking and drinking and drinking. That warthog hasn't lifted its head once since it started drinking. Hello, none of your business. You want to know if there's a reason, or maybe a little bit of a wallow here, there's a reason that there's no there's no water going into the Juma pan at the moment. It's all mud. I think you'll find the reason. That, of course, is what a pig loves to do. Oh, that's wonderful. I think you'll find none of your business at the management, and I haven't managed to speak to them yet, has decided that because that hippo was wandering around the camp during the middle of the day, it's probably best to encourage him to move on. And I think that's why they're not pumping that pan at the moment. Certainly will pump it again at some stage. Just remember, though, that the natural order of things out here would be for animals to move towards the rivers during the droughts, not stick around in areas like this where there isn't any natural standing water. So it's perfectly, certainly from my perspective, it's perfectly ecologically acceptable to cease pumping water. Look at this wonderful wallowing going on here. And this is how those big pans, natural pans, begin. They start like this with a bit of mud, a pig wallowing in them, then maybe a family of pigs, and eventually something larger, a buffalo, might come along and lie in the mud for a while, and eventually they become really large natural pans. Looks quite fun, doesn't it, Brian? Cooling. There's a very gentle breeze blowing from the east. I think that will probably stop during the course of the day. She's being tremendously confiding. We don't often see warthogs like this here. They often just run away. She's going to have a bit of a scratch now. There we go. Found herself a nice rock. Isn't that fantastic? Now she'll go and find some shade, maybe a bit to eat. Why she's on her own if she doesn't have piglets? I just wonder if she doesn't have the little ones in a den somewhere. Margaret, you're absolutely correct. A drink and a spa day. Life couldn't be better. Exactly what's going on with Mrs. Warthog. She's taking a load off, left the kids at home, possibly with a nursemaid, and I mean that in seriousness, and she's going off to spend some time on her own, regather her thoughts. What a wonderful sighting. Right, let's head back across to Jenny and the action that she's got at the Arathusa Dam, and I will continue the search as the sun starts to bake the earth. See you shortly.
Well, guys, we've got our last few moments with the wild dogs. There are other vehicles that would like to come and join us in the sighting. I'm not going to take up too much more time with them. We've had ample opportunity to have a look at them, and it's time to give other people a chance. So we'll enjoy the last few moments with them. The view is not spectacular. It's as good as it can get. I've planted us in a guarri bush in order to be able to see them. So we'll enjoy one last look at the pups. They're going to be here for the rest of the day, in my opinion. So we'll always be able to catch up with them for the sunset safari. I have been trying to get back towards Tingana, but there's still lots of other vehicles who are still approaching. So that's why we haven't rushed off there. Enjoy the last few moments with them, and then we can move off and give other people a chance. But what an exciting morning. Been incredible. Now we saw the pups race up and dash off in chasing something, which apparently turned out to be a hyena, which I could not see. And George in Florida, we're about, I would say, a kilometer away from Tingana's position, and you were wondering what would happen if the wild dogs encountered a Tingana. And the answer is, as with any predators in these situations, they would get up and race and chase him. There's close competition, And in terms of the predator hierarchy, wild dogs fall higher up the food chain, so to speak, than a leopard does, even a big male leopard like Tingana. I think they would be quite wary of tackling him. I think they'd be very, very careful as to what they did. That being said, he would still run away from them. He could do some serious damage if he wanted to, or if he was fighting to defend himself, but that's only really a situation that's going to occur if they were to catch him by surprise. Otherwise, he would avoid them. So generally, with lions at the top of the predator hierarchy, next comes either spotted hyena or wild dogs, depending on how many there are in the particular scenario. They're pretty much evenly matched. But Tingana would dash away, and very sensibly so. It is one of those interesting things about all predators out here, that they will, if possible, go out of their way to sabotage another carnivore. So even leopards will kill lion cubs if they happen to come upon them unprotected. It's a way of reducing competition in the future, as well as to possibly reduce competition for their cubs as well, their future cubs.
This is the best number for that
Chatted a little bit about the various diseases that have affected the animals out here. And Roll, you wanted to know why they don't drop rabies pellets in South Africa. Roll, I don't know the answer to that, and I don't know whether or not they do. I know that there are lots of charities and governmental organizations involved in vaccination schemes. Whether or not they drop rabies pellets around, I'm not entirely sure. I imagine that there's a lot of care being given and thought being given to the ways in which we can reduce rabies outbreaks. Possibly the scale of the problem is incredibly serious, or we know that the scale of the problem has the potential to be incredibly serious. I'm not sure that they don't necessarily drop rabies pellets. Sorry guys, I'm just listening to Diana, now that we have a moment and not the clearest view of the wild dogs, bear with me 1 second. I promised you a picture of the civet. I got so distracted by the goings-on of this morning's drive that I completely forgot. My apologies. So Diana, I hope you're still watching. Let me show you a picture of a civet. That is a genet. That is a civet. There we go. It's the best illustration that I have here at the moment. Oh, that's so bright. That page is so bright. That is what a civet looks like. To me, it's sort of a cross between a mongoose and a badger, maybe with a bit of cat thrown in. And it's roughly about half, I would say maybe half a meter in height, which is about 1.5 feet at the shoulder, and about 1.5 meters long, so 4.5 feet long. That is what a civet looks like. One of the main consumers of those millipedes that we've been seeing out and about, and when they deposit their, it's a mixed feces, because it's a mix between animal matter and plant matter. So where they drop their feces in sort of similar to middens, special middens known as civetries, and you'll see those easily identifiable by the exoskeletons of the millipedes, and they're one of the few creatures out here that can actually consume millipedes. Millipedes are incredibly toxic, very noxious, and the name of the toxin that they carry will come to me in a moment. It's something like cyanide. They carry a very, very potent toxin, and only certain animals are specially adapted to eating them. Not even our wild dog would actually go ahead and munch on those. So that's a civet for Diana.
You can shoot out your bum there. Put it down towards the bump track. Thanks so much.
The wild dogs, I think, are going to be spending the rest of their day asleep under this tree, so we'll have a good place to start for the morning drive.
How about that? Mandaten behind the demo.
Zoe, you've thought of something that I hadn't really thought about properly. Zoe says that she knows that their ears, the big radar ears of wild dogs, serve a listening function and an amplifying function, but you were wondering whether or not they might not serve a cooling purpose, similar to big elephant ears. I guess there's no reason why not. You'll probably find... What is that one doing? Munching on a stick. Chewing on a stick. Hard to see in the shade there. Zoe, it's something I didn't think about. I think yes, probably if you were to have a look at a heat map of a wild dog, there's a chance that they lose a fair amount of heat through those big ears. There'll be plenty of blood capillaries around them. So yes, maybe they do serve a secondary cooling function. I think it would be secondary to the panting motion that they go through. And they are all panting already. It's not even 8 o'clock yet, and it's already easily up over 30 degrees in the sun. Big yawn. We're approaching the end of what has been an incredibly exciting sunrise safari. I'm going to send you back across to James so he can say goodbye, and then I will be back with you shortly.
All right, everybody, we've just come very quickly to show you the drying mud here with the hippopotamus. Clearly an impala tried to come and have a bit of a drink here. We'll be sorely disappointed. Thank you for being with us this morning. I think you're probably more thankful that you had Jamie on drive finding all the animals at Arathusa today. It's been a very hot morning. It will be a hotter afternoon. I will see you later at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Thank you, Brian, for your efforts. Well done. Good job. Thank you, Kirsty and Jerry. And back to Jamie, the animal finder at Arathusa. See you later.
You've come across just at the right moment for the last few seconds of the sunrise safari. The wild dogs are getting up and slowly moving into the drainage line, or further into the drainage line, where I think they're going to plan on spending the rest of their day tucked away in the shade. What an exciting morning it has been. We found Tingana purely by following the signs of the bush, listening to alarm calls, and observing where the animals that were shouting were looking. And he's still around, so you never know, we might actually be able to catch up with him as well on the sunset safari this afternoon. Doug in North Carolina, you said that there is a lone animal wandering towards us and the wild dogs. Difficult for me to tell what it is without seeing it. Could well be an inyala. If it is something like a small antelope or an inyala, we might even, or they might even have an opportunity to kill. I think it's unlikely though. I think they're going to spend most of the rest of their day in the shade. So big thanks to Tibbs for his wonderful company and camera work, as well as to Kirsty and Jerry NFC, and to all of you, the viewers, for your wonderful questions. Have a fantastic day wherever you are in the world, and we will catch you this afternoon for the sunset safari. Cheers for now.